Hey guys, this is going to be a Royal Rumble preview video. It's going to be 3 superstars that could win the Royal Rumble and where I would have them go. And the reason I'm doing this video is I don't like doing predictions and I don't like doing reviews. The reason I don't like doing reviews is simply because I just think it kind of affects my viewing experience of the pay-per-view in a negative fashion, because I'm preoccupied with the review that I'm going to do while I'm watching the pay-per-view, and I don't know, I just think it kind of just brings down the experience of viewing the pay-per-view. You know, it's good for some, and I don't suggest that anyone who does reviews is not really getting the full experience of the pay-per-view. It's different for different people, and for me it just doesn't work. So there you go. And the reason I don't do predictions is because, well, if you're going to do the predictions, doing the review is kind of obligatory. You know, if you do the predictions, then don't do the review. It just kind of seems like, oh, you've done half the job. So I don't do predictions either. This is kind of what I'm going to do instead. I'm just going to do some, general thoughts spliced in with some fantasy booking, because that's what I like to do. And after the pay-per-view happens, just some general thoughts. Just no star ratings, none of that. Just some general thoughts. Again, it's not a bash towards anyone who does that, because there are definitely reviews that I enjoy and definitely reviews that I watch. It's just not for me. That's just my explanation. So here we go. 3 superstars that could win the Royal Rumble and where I would have them go towards Wrestlemania. And the first one is John Cena. John Cena is a favourite to win the Royal Rumble this year, and I definitely could see him winning it. And how I would have him after he wins it, there's no special story to how he wins it. He just outlasts the other 29 guys, obviously, and he decides on Raw the next night that he is going to challenge the Undertaker instead, because he's had the WWE Championship so much, and he decides that I want to go for a new achievement. I want to go for a bigger achievement, something that I haven't done, something that no one has done, and he's going to challenge the Undertaker at WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight Championship. So that means Cena is moving to SmackDown, at least for the purposes of this. And how I would have it go up until WrestleMania is I would have Shawn Michaels take exception to this, because of course he wants to face the Undertaker at WrestleMania. And at No Way Out you can have Cena versus Michaels with Cena putting his World Heavyweight Championship match opportunity on the line. Cena wins, and then he goes to WrestleMania and he loses to the Undertaker. Undertaker retains the title and his streak. And I know it appears that Cena, he didn't win it in 2008 after winning the Rumble, and now he's not winning it now. But I kind of feel like there are a certain package of guys, Cena, HBK, Triple H, those guys that they're over. No one really cares if they lose incessantly, because they're always going to be over. They have their legacy cemented. There's no real danger of them looking weak, is what I'm trying to say. There's no real danger of that with a certain package of guys. There's very few of them, but they're there. Cena is one of them. So I would have him lose at WrestleMania, and then maybe in the summer he could go on to say, I'm losing so much now, I couldn't beat Sheamus, now I couldn't beat the Undertaker, what's going on? And then maybe he could maybe turn on the fans, maybe turn heel, or he could get a manager that appears to be a face but is actually a heel and he's trying to lead Cena down the wrong path. There's all sorts of possibilities you can go there after Cena loses that would make it seem worthwhile to have him lose, but that's off the point. So that's one guy who could win the Royal Rumble and how he could do it. The second guy is Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho could win the Royal Rumble. Has he been built up for it? Not really, but you could definitely have him win it and then have him move to Raw because he can. He got kicked off Raw, he took that personally, but now he moves back to Raw because he can. His arrogance blinds any kind of strategy in moving to Raw. He's just moving to Raw because he can now. So he just kind of comes off as so arrogant that even though maybe he could stay on SmackDown, might be the better option strategically, he just wants to move to Raw just to say that he can, and he bases that on, you tried to kick me off Raw, but now I'm going to dominate it by beating the WWE Champion at WrestleMania and going on to, dominate Raw as the champion. And then at No Way Out, Triple H wins the Chamber, and then at WrestleMania you can have Jericho versus Triple H, a rematch from WrestleMania 18, but this time Jericho wins. And how can that not make me happy? How can that not make me just damn happy that Jericho wins that match at WrestleMania 18, WrestleMania 26? That was an error, but Jericho wins, gets put over by Triple H. No, this is definitely fantasy booking because that's not what happened in 2002. Probably not what's going to happen this year, but whatever. And that's how I would have Jericho be the Royal Rumble winner and go on to WrestleMania to win the WWE Championship from Triple H. That's how I would do that. And the third guy that I'm going to do a quick booking for is CM Punk. And when CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble, he says on SmackDown that he plans to challenge The Undertaker. And because Undertaker and CM Punk definitely have some unfinished business, and it's believable that he would want to challenge The Undertaker. So he calls out The Undertaker on the first SmackDown after the Royal Rumble, and then instead of Undertaker, he gets Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, who is still the unified tag team champion, and can appear on SmackDown if he wants to. So Shawn Michaels comes out, and Punk is like, "Why are you out here? I asked for The Undertaker." And they have a little back and forth promo in which Shawn Michaels says, "I'm challenging The Undertaker. I don't care that you won the Rumble. That's the match I want." And it gets very personal. In the weeks before No Way Out, it gets very personal between Punk and Michaels. Punk can make these remarks about how HBK is not clean, he's full of drugs, and he's he's just an immoral soul. And Shawn can bring up the fact that he's born again Christian and he's definitely clean, and he can take it very personally that Punk is saying these things to him. You make it a very personal kind of feud. I think that would really be good, because at No Way Out, when Shawn is in the chamber, he has a choice to make, because Undertaker is already out, so he's guaranteed to be a new World Heavyweight Champion. So Shawn has a choice. He's at the point where he could win if he wanted to. He's in the last two, and the other person doesn't really matter. But Shawn is there, and he has the choice to make between he could win the match and become the champion, and then Punk has the right to face him at WrestleMania, or he could choose to not win, and then he would be far more likely to get the match with The Undertaker that he wants so much. So he has a choice to make, and he chooses to win the match and win the championship, and that means it'll be Punk versus HBK at WrestleMania. I think it will really cement the feud as personal that Punk chose to that HBK chose to face Punk instead of Undertaker, because Undertaker is who he wanted so badly, but Punk was so personal in what he said to HBK that he feels he cannot avoid Punk. He cannot not face Punk, is what I'm saying. I think that would really work well, and it would really cement a Punk HBK match as really important and really something that we have to see. And then at WrestleMania, I would have HBK win, but it would be definitely a very competitive match where it wouldn't really matter that Punk lost, and then they can have a feud during the summer where Punk can go over a few times and really cement himself. I just don't feel like it's right to put the heel over at WrestleMania in this kind of personal feud, especially at WrestleMania. It just doesn't feel right, even though it's kind of a young guy going over a veteran you'd want to do, but I just don't think it's right in this kind of context. But that's it. That's just a very quick little booking thing for me. 3 guys that I think could win the Rumble, and how I would book them. There's no way I think that's how it's going to go, but it's ways that I would like to see them go, because you have 3 main events of Mania that you would not expect to see. John Cena versus The Undertaker, Punk versus Michaels, and Jericho versus Triple H. So there you go. There are 3 superstars that I think could win the Royal Rumble, and if they do win the Royal Rumble, how I would have them go. And after I watch the Rumble, I will probably do some general thoughts on my thoughts on the pay-per-view and how I think it might go from here. So that's it for this video. I'm out. Later.